Hi, it's Peter Burns in for Paul. Coming up in the best of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast, Booger McFarland is in studio. We get a former player's perspective on growing off the field issues in college football. Mississippi State head coach Dan Mullen will join us. Plus, does Alabama's schedule set them up for a down year in 2015? We'll take your calls. It's the best of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast, and it starts right now.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Paul Finebaum Show without said host, Paul Finebaum. I'm Peter Burns, SEC Network studio host, holding it down, but I can't do it alone. Like Ryan McGee. Ryan McGee did a great job, senior writer for ESPN Magazine, last couple days doing it. He's talented. I'm not nearly as much so I got to bring in a little help. Bring in former SEC legend, my partner in crime, and a man that's getting close to making it on the Senior PGA Tour. My man Booger McFarland.
Be careful.
My man Booger McFarland joining me here for the next 4 hours. Boog, you can qualify for it. You're there. You're not that far away from it.
I can qualify in game, but you got to be 50, dude. I'm only 37.
You're 30. You're not. I did not know that. I thought you were at least 46, 47 years old. Hey, we're gonna have some fun. That's what I told Booger before we started the show today, is that we're not owning the Paul Finebaum Show. All we did was put a deposit here. We're kind of renting it for 3 days. So as long as we don't put any holes in the wall or anything like that, we might get asked back. So locked and loaded for the next 3 days with us here. And, of course, your phone call is always welcome, 855-242-7285. That's 855-242-PAUL. But some of the different headlines we got to get into today. Boogie came out, SEC Media Days, obviously. We will both be there in a couple days out in Birmingham. But the full list of players came out, so we're going to dive into that because I think there's a little bit of lack of star power that we have that we need to address. And then the DeAndre Johnson story continues to kind of float around in this college football, and I would just say sports world. We're going to dive into that as well, too. And former Tennessee Volunteer stud, you saw him play for the Tennessee Titans and a little bit for the Washington Redskins. Albert Hainsworth wrote a letter to his former self. So I want to get Boog's thoughts on that and your guys' thoughts as well. But, Boog, I teed it up for you, man. Where are we starting the Paul Finebaum Show at today?
I think we start at Media Days. Media Days start on Monday. We're going to get there Sunday. And I think when you look at the players that were announced that are going to be there, I think the first thing that jumps out to both of us, especially me, is not only the lack of star power, but the lack of star power at the quarterback position. And I think for the first time in a while, the SEC is kind of going to get back to being what it's supposed to be in my eyes, which is a conference that's built around running backs and built around defense. And I think that's going to be kind of accentuated by the lack of star power at the quarterback position. Nothing against Dak Prescott and Josh Dobbs, but this is a conference right now that's not deep at the quarterback position.
So you're looking at 14 schools times 3 players, right? Every single school gets 3 players. So you do the math, that's 42. I used my little calculator on the iPhone to make sure that was right, and it was correct. But now you're only looking at, 5 quarterbacks this year. And the 5 quarterbacks this year, you got Brandon Allen for Arkansas, who, Boog, you're high on right now. Mm-hmm. Jeremy Johnson, the Auburn Tigers. I'm going through the list as well. You got Dobbs. You also got Matty Mock, and you got Dak Prescott. 5 of the 14 quarterbacks across this conference are going to be representing their school, respectively, at SEC Media Days. But going back even to last year, when a lot of people thought the SEC had fallen off a little bit, 4 QBs last year. I mean, this is – I'm still continue to struggle with how the conference has had all the success. It's always at the ESPN top 300 recruits, yet continues to struggle when you're talking about bringing the talented quarterbacks, at least for the Dog and Pony Show, which is SEC Media Days.
I think you can look at it a couple different ways, PB. One is that it's the advent of the spread offense from a high school level. And so the forum which college coaches have to choose from is a specific type. If you're not running a spread or a specific type of offense, then you're going to be limited when you bring in the high school quarterbacks. Now, also, when you get into the SEC, I don't care what anybody says. Like, you can talk about the SEC like it's this high-powered, high-octane offensive conference. No, it's not. The SEC is a conference that has been, and in my mind is always going to be built around running the football and defense. Okay, you need your quarterback to be adequate. You don't need him to be great. Case in point, look at Alabama last year. Blake Sims was very, very, very good last year, but Blake Sims didn't even get drafted. He's not a guy that's going to light the world up at the quarterback position, but he was adequate enough to get the football to Amari Cooper almost on every play so Alabama could be successful. But the SEC, PB, and everybody out there listening, this is a conference that is still built on stopping people defensively, and you have to have a running game of some sort. Now, you can do the running game unconventionally through the spread, but you have to be physical at the line of scrimmage.
And you're starting to look at the teams like Mississippi State with what Dak and Dan Mullen, who's going to be joining us on the Finebaum Show a little bit later in the program, have done. You look at what Butch Jones and those guys are doing in Knoxville with Josh Dobbs. You're talking about still getting the rushing yards, but just not exactly getting it through 3 yards in a cloud of dust, just turning around and handing it off. But, Booger, to me, I'm almost more concerned on the different way. You're saying that you're concerned about being able to stop the ball, but without having good quality play from the offense, as far as from your quarterback position, right, how important is it to have that defense? Because right now we've seen at least teams advance when the defensive side of it is not, frankly, very good. Look at what Auburn's been able to do lately.
Well, the quarterback position, people call it the most important position in football. I think it's the most important position, especially in pro football. On the collegiate level, you just need your guy to be adequate, okay? You need your guy to make sure that he doesn't turn the football over, that he throws the football to the right person during the right time, and he can convert on third down. Exactly. You don't need a quarterback to be Cody Kessler where he's, throwing for 4,000 yards. You don't need that in this conference, and I think it's been proven. I give you a prime example, PB. Jeremy Johnson came in and played one half for Auburn last year against Arkansas, and right now we think he's the best passer in the conference, and we've only seen him for one half. Why? Because this conference is not used to seeing the ball thrown around at a high level. Now, I know Johnny Manziel did it a little bit, but for the most part, you got to line up and physically run the football. And I think Texas A&M is a case in point. For as much as they throw the football around, they're one of the softest teams I've ever seen on both lines of scrimmage, okay? It's because the mentality that they have is not a physical nature. And so as good as Kyle Allen may be this year, until they develop the tenacity on both sides of the line of scrimmage, it's going to be hard for them to win. Auburn,
you're saying that they're just more of that finesse team?
Yeah.
Is that they just don't have the punch you in the face and kick you when you're down mentality? That it's because I don't know if I see that out of a Sumlin, at least on the facade of what Kevin Sumlin brings, and now you got John Chavis who's coming in as the defensive coordinator. I don't see them being a soft team because we'll have Greg McElroy on the show later today, and he was talking about he thought that might be one of the more physical teams he's seen, at least in the spring lately. But you're saying that's got to change back from what it was in the last 2 years?
Well, if you look at it, their quarterbacks, and we're talking about the star power at the quarterback position and the lack thereof in this conference, they've had quarterbacks that can throw the football. I mean, Johnny Manziel, Kenny the Thrill or Trill, whatever his little 3 games of fame was. I mean, he had his little run there, and now you bring in Kyle Allen. Like, they've had people to throw the football. But what has Texas A&M struggled to do? They couldn't stop a nosebleed from a defensive running standpoint. And I think it's a direct reflection of the mentality that they have. I don't care what you look like in the spring. What are you going to do when Alabama, LSU, Mississippi State, Auburn is on the other side of the field? That's what I want to see from Texas A&M. They have got to be able to stop the run. And when your quarterback is throwing for as many yards as Manziel and Hill and Allen has thrown for, it limits what you can do in the run game and the mentality that you have, PB.
Well, we're going to be talking about that. One of the social media aspect of the Paul Finebaum Show we have today is, and we're not gonna just put it to the SEC. We're gonna do it to all of college football. Is hashtag CFB player trades. So college football player trades. For instance, John Hayes, producer extraordinaire here at the Finebaum Show, broke out earlier. Alabama trading Derrick Henry for J.T. Barrett of Ohio State. Because what, Boog? They got like 9 different quarterbacks that can all play over at Ohio State. And Alabama just goes out there and just picks a guy in a jersey and says, okay, you're gonna run for 1,000 yards. You're a 6-star recruit. We got it. Would that be a trade that Bama fans would go for? Derrick Henry for J.T. Barrett. So you can hit us up on Twitter using hashtag CFB football trades. Our Twitter account, it's at Peter Burns ESPN and at, what is yours? At SEC Booger, is that correct, Boog?
Of course. I mean, what else would it be?
I'm just making sure.
This was the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Bob from Pike Road, Alabama. Bob, you got a player trade. What's going on, man?
Hey, guys, thanks for taking my call.
Got it.
Hey, I think that would be a negative a trade for Alabama for them to trade Derrick Henry to Ohio State for J.T. Barrett for 2 reasons. The first one is Alabama's recipe for success when they've won and won the national title under Saban has been to have a hard-nosed, knock you off the football offensive line with 2 or 3 running backs that can come off tackle and in the mold of Derrick Henry, in the mold of Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram, Eddie Lacy. And it's not to have this phenomenal quarterback that can sit there and throw for 4,000 or 5,000 yards and you know, the ball manager quarterback who can make sure he takes care of the football, doesn't turn it over, and make sure that he leads the offense and hands the ball to that running back and have a run-based offense is Alabama's recipe. So I think that's the number one reason why we shouldn't make that trade. And the second one is Derrick Henry is a Heisman finalist. I'm not finalist, preseason Heisman, getting preseason Heisman hype, and while J.T. Barrett is a great quarterback, no question, Alabama is extremely thin at the running back position. All we have is Kenyon Drake, Derrick Henry, and the true freshman Damian Harris from Kentucky, who can come in and contribute a little bit. So trading one of our 2 main experienced running backs is not a recipe for success, in my judgment. What do you think?
Bob, I appreciate the phone call. That is kind of funny too, though, Boog. Right? Whenever Bama calls in and it's like we're kind of thin, and the 2 guys that you named are you know the 3 guys that you named, even with the recruit coming in, are arguably 3 of the top 50 running backs in the entire country. Because that's why we bring up Ohio State's quarterback, right? Because of how deep they are at that program.
Well, Ohio State's very deep at the quarterback position. I mean, they arguably have 3 starting quarterbacks, and obviously only one of them can have the football. But I think the caller brings up a good point, though. Derrick Henry is going to be the workhorse back for Alabama this year. Kenyon Drake's coming off that horrible ankle injury. And then after that, you know, Bo Scarborough, he got injured in the spring. Tyron Jones was dismissed from the football team. Yeah, you got Damian Harris coming in as a freshman, but we don't quite know what he's going to be. So for the first time in a long time, PB, Alabama is a little thin at the running back position, especially if they can't stay healthy. So I don't know if they really want to trade away one of those guys.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
You can see Booger McFarland just breaking it down right now. Of course, you can't see him. You can hear him kind of doing it, shuffling a little bit. Welcome to the Paul Finebaum Show. It is Booger and Burns filling in for said host, Mr. Paul Finebaum. Peter Burns from the SEC Network, studio anchor, alongside just stud, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, LSU Tiger, senior PGA Tour golfer extraordinaire, Booger McFarland, and a man that loves to lay it down music. Who was that we came back in from break with? You even know who that was, Boog?
Yeah, that was the Gap Band. You remember
that
Charlie
was the Gap
Wilson?
Band?
Yes, it's called the Gap Band. That's when Mama and Daddy was making love and music was great. And I mean, it was just a good time in our country. And a lot of people that are listening now, regardless of where you're from, regardless of what your ethnicity is, you know what the Gap Band and Charlie Wilson are all about. It's tremendous music. I don't need all that. Watch me whip. Watch me nay nay. Like, I don't need all that. I need some good music that's gonna minister to my soul, man.
But everybody has that CD, right? Everybody has the CD or the tape or the 8-track or the vinyl. That was the lay it down CD, right? Like that was it for you. The Gap Band was that CD. Like when that CD came on, like you knew it was game on. Like, hey, is kickoff time about to happen or what?
Well, listen, it wasn't necessarily game on. It just puts the whole party, or whether it's a party of one or a party of two or a party of many, it puts the whole party in a good mood. It's relaxing music. And a couple things. That music doesn't degrade women. That music is not full of curse words. It's just good music, PB.
I always find it interesting about how the schools now, and we see it with Kevin Sumlin, and his bringing the swag factor back, to Texas A&M. And you see a lot of guys talking about, he's got the swagger copter. You see that a little bit with some of the schools. I damn sure saw it up in Knoxville with the way the branding, with the way the tone is that Butch Jones is setting when I went up there for spring practice, and you just felt like a different vibe. But I was always interested about how the schools allow what songs they allow, right? Because you go to practice and you're not going to hear the Gap Band at practice.
No, you're not.
You're not going to hear it. In like Mississippi State down in Stark Vegas, when I went down there, they invite all the fans. It was pretty cool. Open practice. You could come out there and watch scrimmage. You get a chance to see Dak Prescott. You get a chance to see De'Runnya Wilson. You got a chance to see Dan Mullen coaching his guys up. And it was funny about, hey, you'd hear a lot of blank spaces, a lot of songs that had been edited out. And I just find it's interesting, and we'll ask Dan Mullen that, I guess, a little bit later when he joins the Paul Finebaum program coming up. Peter Burns filling in, along with Booger McFarland for Paul the next couple of days. And we were just talking about, the DeAndre Johnson story, and we had the caller, Jim, talking about a Zapruder-like film of he was watching TMZ and how it all went down. But I think the bigger thing you take of this, or I took out of it, rather, is – What the kid did was despicable. It's absolutely disgusting. No way about it. Deserves to get his butt off the team. That's it. In a conversation. But the deeper conversation for me is what athletes have to deal with now. Not just being the big man on campus, but the way I want to say the news cycle and sports media and the expectations coming into like SEC Media Day. How much that's changed now, Booger, than it was back when you were playing. Because, without that social media aspect, how has that changed the player perspective and the player experience on a big-time college football program?
Well, first of all, can you stop saying back then like I played in the 70s or something, dude?
It was old, man. It was old. Paul had hair.
I was at
Paul
LSU
had hair when you were playing.
I was at LSU from 95, 98. I graduated in 99, so I'm not that far removed.
Oh, yes. Y'all had America Online. Okay. Yeah, you got the disc from Blockbuster. I got it. It's still
okay.
Okay.
Here's what I will say, though. You're absolutely right with the DeAndre Johnson situation. It's something that cannot, should not, and hopefully it doesn't happen again. But that's not the first time we've seen that. Some of us have seen that a long time ago. It's just that the world, the sports media, people are just starting to take a look at how the sausage is made. And here's what I mean by that. We often want to build our athletes up, and we often choose the most aggressive athlete. We often choose the most aggressive player when they're young. But the aggression can't just be turned off. Like when you're 5 years old or you're 7 and you're starting to learn how to play football, hey, go hit that dummy. Go hit that other player. You're teaching aggression. Well, guess what? When those guys become 18 or 19 years old, they've been taught aggression for the last 15 years. And oftentimes, especially when you involve alcohol, when you involve late nights, it's hard to turn that aggression off. And what happens is, PB, you get situations like with the DeAndre Johnson, and with the advent of the internet and with the advent of social media and all these different things, things travel a lot farther, a lot quicker. People talked a lot about Tiger Woods. Well, guess what? Arnold Palmer was thought about to be doing the same things back then. But because of social media, because of the internet, okay, you didn't hear about it as much. Let's not just think that Arnie's Army was just all dudes, okay? Arnie's Army consisted of a lot of females too. So
they were listening to the Gap Band a lot. Okay,
it's just amazing what's happened now when things can be sent worldwide in a matter of seconds. And on a college campus, you can't do anything because there's always video cameras, there's always security cameras. But PB, I saw things maybe not as vicious as the DeAndre Johnson situation. I saw things that if they would have been made public when I was in college, you would have had the same type of result or the same type of public outcry. It's just that now we're in a different time where everything is instant and everything has to be sent out and everything is video camera. And so I just think it's a different time, and hopefully we can get past these situations.
How did that affect the team? When you knew, when you saw this guy that got in trouble, got popped, maybe got maybe DWI, but then all of a sudden, hey, a phone call got made or whatnot, or how did that affect the actual team chemistry on did you go, hey, you know what, he's just being an idiot, or did the guys that were doing it the right way get upset in that locker room?
No, guys got upset, okay, because you knew. Here's the thing about it. Even though the public didn't know, the coaches knew, okay? So even though the media didn't know, guess what? Your parents probably knew because the coach's job when they recruited you was to tell the parents, hey, we're going to take care of your son. And when you get a situation where one of the players gets in trouble on or off campus and the coach knows about it, then guess what? You're going to call the parents and say, hey, Miss McFarland, Anthony got in a little bit of trouble. If you happen to hear about it, we're taking care of it. Here's what he did. He's going to call you shortly. And you had to call your mom and tell your mom, hey, you know what? You stayed out late and got arrested for drinking and driving, even though it didn't get reported, okay, because the college police did the coach a solid and basically called the college coach. So things like that have gone on for the longest time. It's just that back then there was a rapport between the college campus police and maybe the police in town, and they would just call the coach. Well, nowadays they don't call the coach. They call TMZ or Deadspin, and it's everywhere. And so I think from a team standpoint, the teammates knew, and whether the guy had to run and do extra gases or things like that, there was always a camaraderie in the team. Don't let the team down. If you do, we're going to call you out.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We can bring some true talent to the Paul Finebaum Show. We're joined by a man who's in his 7th year coaching the Mississippi State Bulldogs down in Stark Vegas, Coach Dan Mullen. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Well, I got a bone to pick with you, Coach, and I figured I was going to save this to the end of the interview, but I figured I'll just start with it now. So if we don't go any further than this, I apologize in advance, okay?
Yeah?
Your wife has cost me thousands and thousands of dollars. So the story is I go out to Stark Vegas for the spring practice and got a chance, and your wife Megan is I mean, she's literally like, it's not just the team mom of the school, of the Bulldogs, Coach. She's like the team mom of Starkville. It's incredible how she could run for mayor in that town. She knew everybody by name, and she comes up and says, hey, it's great to see you guys, SEC Network's here, and I say, well, I'm getting married in September. I need to go thinking about this is where I'm going to go out for my honeymoon. She's like, well, Dan and I went to this one place in the Caribbean that was incredible. And so she showed me pictures and stuff like that. Soon enough, I get home from my trip. I show my fiance the picture. She made us cancel everything, and now we're going to the spot that Megan Mullen, your wife, has done. So I don't know how necessarily you pay me back on this. We'll work with Bill Martin over there and do that.
She likes nice locations, some people go on camping trips. I don't even think she would go glamping right there. I mean, it's got to be a little bit nicer. When we go away on vacations, we like nice spots, and that have beautiful views. But unfortunately, those places aren't real cheap usually. So we just had our 10th wedding anniversary, and we went back to where we went for a honeymoon in Santorini, Greece, and so it cost me some money this summer as well to go over.
Were you able to get money out of the banks over there, Coach?
Yeah, you know what? I think we were in and out of there before it all seemed to collapse. But you know what? When you're on the islands, when you're in those Greek islands, I don't think they're feeling much of the same pinch everybody else in the country is feeling with the prices we had to pay at all the resorts there.
Coach, I would love to keep talking about honeymoons and resorts, but I'm going to ask a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about some football here. You lose Dylan Day, and Josh Robinson is no longer there, and obviously everybody's saying, where's the production from the run game going to come from? How would you answer that?
Well, for us, I think 4 out of the last 5 years we've had to replace a starting tailback, and every guy that we've replaced has been a 1,000-yard rusher. From Vic Ballard to Ladarius Perkins to Josh Robinson. So I can't tell you who's going to be the guy. We got some really good candidates. With Ashton Shumpert, Brandon Holloway are older guys, and Eris Williams and Tavian Lee, the younger guys, and even we'll see the freshmen when training camp starts. But we're always going to be committed to running the ball, and we have a pretty good stable of running backs. So I feel fine with that. And the offensive line is going to be critical. Jamal Claiborne is really worked to try to become the starting center for us. And we'll see how that competition, with some other guys maybe shakes out during training camp. But we have a lot of young linemen. I know we graduated a lot of experience with 3 seniors on the O-line graduating last year. But I also think the fact that we have a quarterback back, we have a lot of wide receivers back, and that threat of the ability to throw the football is certainly going to take some of the pressure off the running game and allow us to run the ball more effectively.
Coach Dan Mullen joining us on the Paul Finebaum Show. Coach, how much does the movement in the pocket and what Dak's able to mask a little bit of that inexperience there on the offensive line for next year?
Well, I think, it's not just his movement, it's his experience back there, his ability to get the ball out of his hands quickly and, and make quick decisions and make good quick decisions with the ball. Certainly takes pressure off of him. I think, one of the things you look at is, D-line and constantly I'm preaching it when I'm with our defense is run of the football. All of a sudden that ball's snapped, it's out of the quarterback's hands quickly. The D-line is sprinting across the field to where the ball was. We're going to get up on the ball, snap it quick again. And all of a sudden you start wearing and checking on their physical condition of running sideline to sideline with a quarterback that can manage the game and get the ball out of his hands. I think we'll take some of the pressure off of them in those type of situations and hopefully trying to wear down some defensive lines.
Coach, with Preston Smith gone and Bernard McKinney gone, how much pressure or how much do you need Chris Jones to kind of step up and fulfill that potential that he's flashed and shown us so many times?
Yeah, that's going to be a big deal for us, with him. I know people look at it and they say, well, look at all the different starters that we've lost, and we've lost a bunch of guys on the defensive side of the ball. But the amazing one of it is, we have 14 guys returning that have started games in their careers. So, I don't, when you look at returning the starters, so, I know it says, when you look at a lot of places that, boy, we don't have many returning starters. Right. We have 14 guys that have started games coming back. And we have a lot of guys that have played significantly. When you look at guys that, Richie Brown, who was an SEC Player of the Week last year, a Chris Jones, who gets all kinds of accolades. Neither of them have ever been a starter before. And but get those accolades. So I think when you lose those guys, a guy like Chris Jones, now that he is going to be a starter, he needs to go play at an extremely high level of football for us. But we know he has that potential. He's made big plays in the past and done a lot of things for us. And even though I guess that's one of the things you look at on our defense and say, wow, they got a lot of guys that haven't. That aren't returning starters or that are starters that were lost, but because we play so many guys on defense, we have a lot of experience coming back.
SEC Media Days right around the corner. That's why everybody's back from vacation, and it's kind of the official start of when football season kicks off here in this great conference. And, Coach, how do you guys decide which 3 players you guys are going to put up on the podium and bring out to Birmingham?
Boy, it's always different. Originally, my original rule was I wanted to bring juniors, guys that are going to be upcoming juniors, to media days because, a lot of seniors already get a lot of exposure, and it's a great experience to get kind of these young upcoming guys that are going into their junior year to get that experience and get that in front of all the media and all the pressure that it has. But I think, I've had to throw that out the window because, I think everybody would freak out if Dak Prescott didn't go this year. And for us, and
us at the SEC Network, we would freak out a little bit if we didn't get a chance to speak with more Dak.
I guess that's a good problem for us to have because now we do have I don't know star players, but recognizable players that people want at all of these events, and so we just kind of look at guys that represent our program in a very strong way, and what our program's all about. And that are representing who we are as a program, and that's how we selected. I think we have Ryan Brown, Tevez Calhoun, and Dak Prescott coming, which are guys that are probably our most experienced starters. 2 out of the 3 have already graduated, and Ryan Brown's an academic scholar throughout his career. So they're guys that really represent what our program stands for.
So is Media Day kind of the beginning for you, or is that something you say, okay, we go to Media Day, we come back, we get a little bit more downtime, and then we lock in? How do you view this time of year as far as when you, as a coach, get ready to get kind of fired up for the season?
Well, Media Day, our staff reports, I think I got Media Day next Tuesday, and our staff, we have our first staff meeting of the new year, I guess it is, at 8 a.m. Wednesday morning. So Media Day is kind of a wake-up call for me that it's time to get out of the summer family time mode and get back to work. And it certainly does it with all the hype, all the attention, everything that's going on there. It does wake you up of what's around the corner and time to get going, time to get back to work and get ready for the season.
What's the biggest change been since the run of the 5 weeks at number 1 and showing that this school in Stark Vegas can compete for a national championship?
Well, I think it's really twofold. One, I think the expectations within our program have changed. I mean, it was always a fight to say that let's be a team that can go compete for championships. But I think now that we got to number 1, stayed there for a couple weeks, ended up a couple minutes short against Alabama of winning the SEC West, and on the road. But I think that really showed our guys here we can compete, we can expect have the opportunity to go win championships here. And so it really did change. I think the standard of what our guys work for now. I mean, they're hungry to get back to that and get back on top and get back to being number 1 and want to have the opportunity to finish number 1. I think it's also changed the perception outside our program, though, a lot. We've talked about, since I've been here, we're going to build a championship program. We're going to win a championship here at Mississippi State. I don't know when, but we will. It might be this year for us. And I think when I used to say that, I think a lot of people around the country would kind of chuckle and laugh and say that's great coach speak. But I think the type of season we had last year, I think people now look and say, hey, we're a program that's going to have the opportunity to do that. And that's pretty – I like that. I like having that type of program.
Coach, Jeff Collins left, went to Florida, bring back Manny Diaz. 2-part question here. Kind of talk about that time when Jeff left and you're bringing in Manny, and just what does Manny bring that maybe Jeff didn't do for your defense last year?
Well, I think that, one of the things, I don't freak out that much. I mean, I guess, with Jeff leaving, all it did was eliminate any type of Christmas vacation I had or holiday I had because, what I did is just work with the defense in bowl prep. And then when I gave the coaches a couple days off over Christmas, I had to spend all my time here in the office preparing, make sure the offense was ready for the game as well. But, I think one of the things we've had some defensive coordinators come and go and some guys get different opportunities to move on. I think what it's shown within our program, we're always going to play really good defense here at Mississippi State. And that's a philosophy. I don't know that really a coordinator. It's our program. You know, I mean, it's the defense that we're going to run, the style of defense we're going to run. It hasn't changed since I got here. And, you know, so I think the great thing having Manny Diaz come in is he knows what my expectations on the defensive side of the ball are. You know, I think he's a tremendous schematic coach. And, you know, brings an awful lot to the scheme, understanding the defense, understanding how to cause problems, how to attack offenses and get them out of their comfort zone, which is something that's really, really important to me. And it's great having a guy like Manny that knows what the expectations within the program are and what my expectations of a head coach of what I want our defense to be like. You know, very much as our offensive coaches, we've had a lot of continuity on offense. They understand what my expectations of what I want our offense to look like. And I think when you have a coaching staff and everybody understands and is on the same page with what the expectations of the head coach and what our vision of our program is, you have an opportunity to be successful. There's no chance for anybody not to be on the right path, on the same page, and putting the team on the field that plays the way we need them to play.
Coach, quickly, last question for you. Where do you expect these SEC media guys, you know, Paul Finebaum included, where do you think that they'll vote you in the SEC West this upcoming year?
No, I don't know. They're probably last. I think they vote us last every year. They voted us last year, and then we did okay. So I assume that probably, you know, I don't know. My goal is this, and like all the polls, all the preseason stuff, I think that's great. If you're not going to be voted first, you might as well be voted last, because first gives you motivation to stay there. Last gives you motivation to prove everybody wrong. Everywhere in between is just kind of like, you know, like ho-hum, whatever. You're average. So if they're not going to vote us first, hopefully they vote us last, so our guys get motivated and get kind of pissed that they voted us down so low.
It worked out well last year, and ask Mizzou, who's been ranked dead last in the East the last couple of years. So we'd like to see it. Coach Dan Mullen, we appreciate the time, and tell Megan, you know, we'll try to take some nice photos. When we get out
I want to see the photos right there. I will say this: you will enjoy your time there. It's going to be a pretty special stay.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it, Coach. I'm looking forward to seeing the Bulldogs down in Starkville this year. All right?
Yeah, thank you, guys. Have a great day.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
What's going on, Steve?
It's like a broken record, guys. I call this station. It's disrespectful to Gary Pinkel, for one. It's also disrespectful to my entire family to listen to. If you looked at the offensive line that they're returning, notice the number of NFL defensive linemen that aren't in your 5 stars, that aren't out of Florida and Texas and Georgia. You know, they grow players in Missouri, too. And the reality is they just keep loading the NFL with these players, and all you guys do is look around and go, what happened? Who is that guy? Where'd he come from?
But, Steve, shouldn't you love this? Shouldn't you absolutely love that no one's talking about your team? Because the last 2 years, no one spoke about the Missouri Tigers, and everyone talked about how, well, are they really a part of the SEC? Have they got there? What did they do? They just whooped up on everybody. So what would you rather, the hype before or the hype after the season?
I like the hype. I'll take it either way. That's fine. But if you look at their offensive line, you look what they do with their defensive line. They bring Hansborough back at running back. They bring Matty Mock at quarterback. They look at their secondary. It's going to be the best it's been in years. And you look at their linebacker core. Their only question is wide receiver. So I don't know what you and Booger and everybody else is doing besides talking to Bubba and whoever down in Alabama. But Gary Pinkel will do it again. He'll win with 2- and 3-star players. And like he won in the Big 12, he went to three Big 12 championships. If you guys noticed, the last 5 years he was there. I mean, I'm not comparing us to Alabama. I'm not saying we're going to beat them. But it's like a broken record. Oh, it's going to be Alabama and Georgia in the final.
You should.
It gets old, guys. It gets
old. If
what
you're saying, hold on now, if what you're saying is true, and you're saying I'm not going to say we're going to beat Alabama, but I want the credit, shouldn't you be beating your chest and saying we are going to beat Alabama? We are going to beat Auburn. We're going to be the best damn team in the country because no one's giving us the credit. You just gave me the resume for the Missouri Tigers, did you not? And you're saying you don't give the credit. Yet here you are, Missouri Tigers super fan, saying, well, I'm not saying we're going to beat Alabama. Why the change in the attitude if you're going to beat your chest on this team?
Well, because I've gone to both the last 2 SEC championship games, just like I went to the Big 12 ones when we played in that. And I can't defend our record in that game until we kick that door down. I don't want to just sit here and blow hot air. The reality is that I went to Mizzou in the mid-'80s when they were that school was a cesspool for about 10 years. Prior to that, with Dan Devine, we won an awful lot. But Gary Pinkel put that program on the map. Gary Pinkel's the best coach in the SEC. He's better than Saban. He's better than any of them. What he has done at the University of Missouri, and you guys showing him zero respect every year, is disgusting. He graduates his kids, he wins, and he wins with 2- and 3-star players because he knows how to develop talent. And you guys, again, are asleep at the wheel. So
I completely agree with you on Missouri. I spent 3 days in Missouri this year. I called Missouri spring
You're there
game.
for the spring training game.
Right. I got an opportunity to sit down and talk to Coach Pinkel, to talk to Coach Cool. I visited with Charles Harris, Marcus Loud. I understand what Mizzou made is all about. Okay, I got that explained to me, and I saw it firsthand. So you're right when you say sometimes they don't get the respect that they deserve. And if I were you, I'd rather have it in the postseason than the preseason. But let's look at the realistic facts on the table. Okay, Matty Mock is one of the veteran quarterbacks coming back in the conference. He's got to play better in the pocket. He's been very erratic. And where Mizzou has made their money at the wide receiver position, they're very inexperienced this year. And now you go to the defensive line. Trust me, I love defensive line play. I think Coach Cool has done a great job. But look at Missouri this year. Harold Brantley, who, in my opinion, was going to be up for Defensive Player of the Year in the conference, he's not going to play this fall, number one. Number two, Marcus Loud has been kicked off the team. So now half of your starting defensive line is not going to be there. So I understand why there's some question marks about Missouri right now, because if you look at what they've been known for, wide receivers and defensive line, those are the two biggest question marks, I think, on the team.
But then they also find themselves in an imbalanced SEC yet once again. Can we all agree that? Can we all agree that's listening that the SEC once again is imbalanced east to west? Booger, do you agree with that? Am I off base here?
Well,
because I look at the SEC West being much more loaded once again, top to bottom, just top to bottom, because I still think Tennessee's a year away. I still think what you're seeing, Florida may be 2 years away. For Florida Gator fans who think that Jim McElwain's going to be able to come in here, you do not quite understand how bare the cupboard is right now and what he's having to do. And I have no doubt that Jim McElwain is going to be able to do that for Florida. I saw it firsthand when I was in Colorado and saw what he did at Colorado State. That was an amazing job in a place that no one can recruit to, yet he was going ahead and do it. But Missouri still finds himself in a 2-year situation to where it's them in Georgia. It's them in Georgia, bud.
Well, if you think about Missouri, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. The reason Missouri may not be getting the respect that they deserve, we've seen Missouri twice in the SEC title game, and let's be honest, regardless of what the score said, the games were never close. Okay, they got manhandled by Auburn up front. And Alabama, the game never, after Shane Ray got kicked out of the game never really materialized. Okay, they had trouble covering Amari Cooper. And so when I look at Missouri, yes, Mizzou made is phenomenal. They do a great job of player development. What Coach Pinkel does with 2- and 3-star guys, he says, I don't care about stars. You give me talent, I'll develop a guy. They are tremendous with what they do. I mean, it's unbelievable. But the fact is, until they line up in the SEC title game and beat the best from the West, the stereotypical perception is going to be that they just can't hang with the big boy. Yeah, they can beat all the kind of mid-level to lower-level SEC teams for that year, but when it comes to the best of the West, they won't be able to do it. And guess what? Until they do it, that's going to be the perception.
Booger and Burns in here for Paul Finebaum. I'm Peter Burns. He's Booger McFarland. And here is Andy in the Indy. Talk about a little Missouri Tigers. What's up, Andy?
Not much, guys. How are you doing today? Thanks for having me.
You got it.
Hey, I'm not a Missouri hater, and I have the utmost respect for what Pinkel's done there because that guy's right. He does it with less. But I went to Indiana University, and I've watched the cesspool of college football for years, and Indiana went to Missouri this year and beat them. And I got to tell you, they don't deserve any discussion with Alabama, Georgia, or anybody else because they lost to IU in football. And I love my school, but we stink at football, and if you lose at home to Indiana, you got problems. And I'll tell you what else. They lost. I think their other loss last year was at home to Georgia, 38-0. So, take away the SEC championship game. If you want to be considered serious, you can't lose 38-0 at home to one of your divisional competitors.
And here's the deal. And here's the deal, Andy, right? And this is probably what's more infuriating than this information or these phone calls to Missouri fans. It's probably more infuriating to Georgia Bulldog fans. Because it seems like every single year we hear it. This is the year for Mark Richt. This is the year that they get over the hump. Man, they got it. Look, the SEC, Florida's down. Tennessee can't put 80,000 in their stadium any longer. They're going to be firing coaches. Vandy is struggling right now. Oh, here it comes. Yet they can't get over that hump. Yeah, they could beat them, but then no sooner than Missouri loses to Indiana than Georgia will lose a game. What was it, to South Carolina last year, in which they probably should have won because that was Spurrier's worst team that he's seen in a long time. The SEC East continues to baffle me, Booger.
Well, the East doesn't have a dominant team. Florida kind of did it for a little while, but since the quarterback rotation has kind of shifted from, having the veteran quarterbacks in the East to maybe the West over the last couple of years, especially when you had Mettenberger and McCarron and those guys at LSU and Alabama,
right.
The East is kind of up for grabs, okay? Florida is down. Tennessee is everybody's, nice new little hottie coming on the block. Everybody's picking Tennessee, including me, okay? Missouri kind of gets left out because they're not one of the blue bloods, okay? And when we've seen them on the big stage against Alabama, against Auburn, they haven't performed. And so I think this year, Missouri, of all the years that we've kind of quote-unquote left Missouri for dead, I think this is the year where in actuality there may be some truth to that, because at the wide receiver position, where they've had Dorial Green-Beckham and they've had Sasser and they've had all these Jimmy Hunt and all these different guys, they are down this year. I mean, they are more down this year at receiver than I've ever seen them before. And with Harold Brantley getting hurt in a car accident, I'm glad his life is okay, but from a football standpoint, it doesn't look like he's going to play this fall. And now you kick the other defensive end, Marcus Harris, off the team. Marcus Loud. You kick Marcus Loud off the team. So now half your starting lineup is gone. It's going to be tough for them to continue to play at such a high level. But with that being said, because the East is weak, it's still up for grabs.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt, frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
The legends of the Paul Finebaum Show, and I see one on the line right now, so let's go to him. Man, thanks for joining Booger and Burns. What's up?
Booger and Burns, you gotta like that. Sounds like a book.
Hey, we've been called worse, my friend.
And I love the way you're carrying the show, because not once have either one of you thrown, I am the senior writer. I really like Ryan, but I think he just stayed 4 hours too long. Because when I called him out, the next thing I knew, right off the top of the senior writer's head, well, I guess Gus is down there drawing up some goofy plays in the dirt. I mean, that's the best shot he's got. Senior writer, the best shot he's got is Gus drawing up a goofy play and how goofy Auburn's going to be. The senior writer, imagine that. And Booger and Burns come on here and they're talking soul funk. If you're going to play some soul funk, just go straight to the heart of the master of the soul funk and put on some Sly and the Family Stone Stand and be done with it.
Some stank. Put it on
I love
there,
it, man.
Just be done with it. If you're going to go to the soul funk card, don't go with none of these newbie posers that stand in front of mansions and convertible cars with gold chains. Go to the man that built the mansion and made the gold. That would be Sly Stone. Booger, I like the fact that you picked Tennessee. You went out on that limb. You didn't hesitate. You picked Georgia. You picked Tennessee for the same reason I'm picking Tennessee. Because Georgia, as good a football team as they've been, they've got this thing, they just can't get over the hurdle. The hump, whatever you want to call it. Now, maybe they do that this year because they've got a really good schedule. And I think maybe Georgia's Eastern schedule has hurt them in years past to be prepared for somebody that may be a little more dominating than the competition they've had, because the East has been pitiful. And I agree with you on Missouri. Missouri will be there at the end by default because the East is so pitiful. But I think Tennessee's hungry. And I think Tennessee captures Alabama at the right time in Bryant-Denny. We saw Alabama taken to the ropes by Arkansas. We saw Ole Miss beat them. We saw Auburn run up a bunch of points on them. They just didn't have enough defense. And you know what? If Auburn's defense can 3 plays on defense in a ball game, if they can force 2 punts and one of those, and that third one is a turnover, Auburn's going to beat the brakes off of you. And you know, I know that A&M can score some points, but I'm not impressed with Chavis at all. He was at LSU, 3-4 years? And we're talking about LSU, and he had no defense whatsoever, and he's going to go to A&M and make a difference? I don't think he makes any difference. I think A&M is all offense.
Well, I'm going to jump in here with you a little bit, and the only reason I can say this is because I followed LSU, having been there, and Chavis was pretty good at LSU from a defensive standpoint.
And I'm not knocking him, but there again, they weren't consistent with what LSU should have been. Would you agree with that?
Yes, you can say that, but some of that had to do with the offensive ineptness that LSU has shown under Les Miles. And so I think from a defensive standpoint, listen, the people in Baton Rouge, some of them were crying when Chavis left. So that lets you know how they felt about John Chavis. Now, some of that is because people in America today are afraid of change. Some of that's because they knew how good the defense had been under Chavis. Now, I will agree with you. Chavis going to A&M doesn't make A&M any better in my book. A&M has to change their mentality along the offensive and defensive line for them to be better. But Chavis will help, but it doesn't necessarily make them better at all.
Why do you say that, Book? Well, why do you say that Chavis going to A&M when you think that he's had the tools in LSU, the players to do it? But let's be honest with you, he's got sick and tired. The reason why he left Baton Rouge because he couldn't stand looking at the scoreboard and going, why do we only have 7 points? Why do we only have 10 points? He went to College Station because he says, well, I can coach a defense when they're scoring 35 on that side. But why don't you think that Chavis's plan, do you think it'll take a few years to get there, or you just don't think that he could toughen up that A&M mentality right now?
There's an old saying where I come from, PB, you can't live soft and fight tough. Texas A&M has lived soft for a long time. You want to know how I know that? Because of the style of offense they play. When they go to practice, they don't practice the physicality that they see on Saturdays. They practice this basketball on grass stuff. And what happens when you step up against the big boys, okay, when you step up against LSU and Bama and Auburn, they play big boy football. And if you're not used to that from a mentality standpoint, you can't live soft every day and then all of a sudden step in the ring with Mike Tyson. Oh, it's a different animal. That's the reason why. And last time I checked, PB.
Buster Douglas.
Exactly.
Right. And you got to catch them on that right day at that right time.
Exactly.
I think Les Miles is one of the most underrated coaches in this conference. There's so many people talk about how goofy he is and all that, and I think that's what hurts the mentality of the LSU fans is because everybody's talking about their coach, but that dude is a player's coach. The players love that guy, and I just have all the respect in the world. I like a guy that's willing to gamble and win the ball game, whether he's got the stuff or not. That's what makes the game interesting.
Man, we knew a legend was calling, and you lived up to the hype, man. We appreciate the phone call.
I'm not through.
Oh, hell, well, I'm going to let you go.
I don't think this is Alabama. This may not be Alabama and Auburn's year. This may be more it could very well be Arkansas. It could very well be Arkansas and Tennessee. I think Auburn's going to be in the mix, absolutely, because I think Auburn is a team to reckon with. I don't know about Alabama. Nobody knows about Alabama. Nobody in the country knows what Alabama's going to do. But we do know this, that Nick Saban is going to shake his hands in unison 3 times from left to right. And you know why he does that? Because he tried at 17 years old to be in the Navy, and they say he couldn't do a damn thing with them flags. Get him back on shore. Guys, have a great day.
Now, hi, man, coming in.
PB.
Do it. Yo.
Our man is a legend, and people might take him for a joke. Let me lay out a scenario really, really quick where he could have some actual reality to what he said. If you think about the most important position in football, it's a place that Alabama has question marks, Georgia has question marks.
Mm-hmm.
And Auburn really, I mean, we've seen one half from Jeremy Johnson, so you got to say that there are a few question marks there. I think that if Alabama doesn't get adequate quarterback play, I don't care what the rest of the team does. If they don't get adequate quarterback play, they're going to struggle. Look no further than LSU. LSU has first-rounders everywhere, but the quarterback position struggles, therefore the team struggles. So if Alabama doesn't get consistent quarterback play, furthermore, if Auburn doesn't get consistent quarterback play, then you can have NFL talent everywhere, but the guy that touches the ball every single play, if he can't make at least average decisions, your football team is going to struggle. And Arkansas has Brandon Allen coming back, who's the most experienced starting quarterback coming back in our conference. Okay. Tennessee has Dobbs coming back, who's made, I want to say, 4 or 5 starts.
Right.
Okay. Kyle Allen started some games. So there are 4 more teams other than Alabama, Georgia, and Auburn who have way more experience at the quarterback position than those 3 teams do.
Booger, and I didn't want to even say this because this is I may not get invited back the next 2 days, but some of you might be okay with that. I think Bama loses 5 games next year.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Chris in Louisiana. Chris, thanks for joining the Paul Finebaum Show. What's up?
Hey, Pete, Boog, how are y'all guys?
What up, buddy?
Man, Boog, long-time fan, brother. Been listening to you for years. I just have to say this. I heard your caller earlier say that he said that Les Miles is an underrated coach. Am I correct in saying that?
That would be factually correct. That is what a caller had said earlier. That's what just said earlier.
And he is still quarterbacks. He has had an issue with quarterbacks over the last, since he's been there. Am I not correct in saying that?
Yes, he has.
Yeah. I was going to try to make a point
just
for
keep it
him.
real.
Okay, so there has to be a reason he can't get a quarterback that can come in and be a system quarterback. Maybe it's his system that's the problem, and I don't understand how he can be an underrated coach if he can't get a quarterback that will be sufficient for his school. I'm an LSU fan. I've been an LSU fan since I was able to know who LSU was. Can't figure it out. There are a lot of people who are LSU fans who are not Les fans. I'm not the only voice in this one.
And I'll give you the reason why. I'll give you the reason why. Is because Les came after Nick. Okay, and when Nick Saban was there, Nick's first year on the job, he visited every high school in Louisiana, and he kind of put a fence around that state. And the high school coaches vouched for Nick. And I mean, everybody from high school to college were all on board with Nick Saban. And Les isn't as personable as Nick was. And so that lack of personability kind of rubs people the wrong way, number one. And so I can understand why some people are not fans of Les. Number two, when you look at the style of football that LSU plays under Les Miles, it's always going to be defensive football and running game. That's what the SEC is built on. Now, think about if you were a 17-year-old young man. Do you want to go hand off 55% of the time? I mean, because LSU ran the football more than anybody in the conference last year. So do you want to go hand off the football the large majority of the time? And I think that's the problem. That's the Rubik's Cube that LSU faces, is because they've been so good at running the football and they've been so good at playing defense. The perception is they don't throw the football. Well, Alabama was the same way. So what did Nick Saban do? He went hired Lane Kiffin, because I'm going to bring in a coordinator that's known for throwing the football so we can lose that perception. I think LSU has to figure out a way to lose the perception. That way you can keep a guy like a Shea Patterson from Shreveport. You can keep him in Louisiana. Instead, he's heading to Ole Miss. They got to get a guy that can deliver the football from the pocket.
But Booger, and Chris, thanks for the phone call. How do you shed that perception? Because the only way you shed the perception is putting a kid like Brandon Harris in and said, okay, kid, let's see what you could do in Auburn. And he didn't even know the plays going into the huddle. I don't think he was ready to play. So if you're Les Miles and you go, I don't have quarterbacks. I just don't have them right now. I know we have to develop them. But if I send them out there and against somebody different other than UL Monroe or Centenary School for the Amish School of Technology, and they're not ready to go, then I'm losing 2 games. I got 2 losses right off the bat, and I already know people aren't exactly excited what's going down in Baton Rouge. It's the devil that he's dancing with right now, and it goes all the way back since Ryan Perrilloux decided that he was not going to walk the straight and narrow path after winning the national championship. Once Perrilloux got kicked off that LSU team, they had to throw in Jarrett Lee right off the bat, and that ruined Jarrett Lee. Jarrett Lee was a wide-eyed 18-year-old freshman, a young kid that went in there and just got taken to task, wasn't quite ready, and it screwed up the entire situation. So if you want to go back, I don't even know if you go back and blame Les Miles. You go back and blame Ryan Perrilloux, who I have no idea if he's still even playing in Arena Football League or Canadian Football League or whatever the hell he's doing right now. That's where you put the blame at, Book.
Well, and see, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I think Les has to take some culpability because you're the guy that's recruiting these players. And, you know, when your quarterbacks consist of Anthony Jennings, Brandon Harris, and these guys aren't getting the job done, and that's all you have, like that's the best thing that you have on your roster, then somewhere along the line you failed in recruiting. Somewhere you failed. And LSU, to me, is no different in 2014 than they are in 2015 right now. What's the biggest question you had for LSU going into last year? Quarterback. What's the biggest question you have right now about LSU?
Quarterback, but it may not be just because of what the off-field issues with Anthony Jennings.
Right, but and to me, PB, that's where Les Miles is at fault. When you know where you're weak at, and you go 1 calendar year, and you essentially have the same question mark, what have you done for the last 365 days? So I understand the dilemma that's going on in Baton Rouge right now, but until it's solved, LSU has NFL talent everywhere except the quarterback position, and I don't know if I consider Les Miles underrated. Some people said he's overrated. I've never heard him called underrated, though.
855-242, Paul. That's 855-242-7285. Peter Burns, Booger McFarland filling in for Paul Finebaum. We'll head out to Alabama. Robert, what's going on, man? How you doing? Welcome to the Finebaum Show.
Hey, guys. Boy, I got a problem with this 5-loss comment y'all made. I think that's ridiculous.
No. Hey. Yeah. First of all, y'all didn't make it. He made it.
Peter Burns made it. I stand by it.
All right. Well, y'all forgot. He forgot about the LK factor, the Lane Kiffin factor.
Okay.
See, even though we've had some new quarterbacks in the years, think about some of the championship years. We started off with a new quarterback, won championships with him. What, 2 times, 3 times? What was it? But 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years, we had new quarterbacks, and we did very well compared to the national average. But you got Lane Kiffin now, the throwing coach, if you want to call him that. But I think we're going to do just fine. 2 losses tops, and that would kill me even. But I'm thinking championship again, but we're going to run the ball 65-75% of the time and throw it here and there until
Robert, you may have the Alabama Crimson Tide may end up having 2 losses before they even step onto the field in November. That's not how I see it.
Please explain this.
You're starting out right off the bat. Okay, let's just talk about the personnel issue right now. Okay, you're losing Amari Cooper. You're losing the fact that who you're going to throw it to. That's fine. You got Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is a genius. I give him that. But at the same time, when you're talking about these quarterbacks coming in, the A.J. McCarron, the guys that hadn't played before, but you know what? They got it done. They got it done because they were known as, hey, this was going to be the guy. They weren't one of 5 to where Nick Saban can't sleep at night, people. I don't think Nick Saban sleeps at night right now because he doesn't know which one of the 5. At least last year,
I think he's sleeping fine because he takes Sominex, man.
Maybe
what is
so.
That?
Maybe
what is that?
Sominex. Yeah,
what is that? Like a sleeping aid or something?
It's sleeping aid. He might need it because now he's got 5 guys to where. And listen, if they're all 7.5s, are they going to? And they can't stand out from each other. I watched the spring game and how I can take a look at all of those guys and know that no one's going to take that next step, maybe not even good enough. And it's not necessarily what Bama's going to bring, because Bama's going to bring some incredible talent. We know that. Nick Saban's the best recruiter in the history the history of the college football game. No one can ever deny that. That's what Nick Saban does. But the issue also bringing up is that he opens the season at a neutral site at Wisconsin. Let's say they go ahead and win that game. Then you're going to have to go on the road in Stanford to play Georgia. Then you're looking at Arkansas and at A&M. Those are 3 weeks in a row. Then, after that third week of SEC play, which you get 3 up-and-coming schools, you're going to have to play Tennessee. And, yes, it is at home, but that's a team that's going to be coming off a bye. Then, oh, by the way, you got an open date to LSU. Then you got to go to Starkville for Mississippi State. And, oh, by the way, you got to go out to Jordan-Hare and play in that Iron Bowl. That's the reason why I see 5 losses. I see 4 regular season losses for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And you know where that 5th loss is going to be? In a bowl game, because that they are not going to be happy with playing in the Music City Bowl at that point. That's where I'm at.
You're smoking something, by the way.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN Radio app.